Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hi, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. If you're joining me either on YouTube Live, we had a little glitch, the countdown. When we're on TV, you're going to see a countdown and it started over and we don't know why. I mean, Mercury is left retrograde, so who knows, but it started over because if you're listening on the radio, as you know, you hear the top of the hour news, and that's why we usually have a 3-minute countdown. But it for some reason just decided to start again. So we're going with it. It's no problem. Today I have a really cool guest. I have Segal on, and she's an intuitive healer and a best-selling author of The Secret Language of Your Body. And she is going to join me in just a couple of minutes. And I want to say welcome, whether you're watching me live, whether you're restreaming this, whether you're hearing it live on the radio, or you're listening to it on any of the podcasting platforms, because the show does go up on all the podcasting platforms. I want to say a big warm welcome. Thank you for being here. And I hope everybody had a very, very nice Thanksgiving. For those of you who are in America and got to spend time with the people that you love, that you had a nice and beautiful and happy Thanksgiving, and it wasn't too stressful dealing with your crazy family, because sometimes that can happen. But right, it's all good. It's all good. We're very grateful. I'm a big proponent of gratitude. I talk about gratitude all the time because I believe gratitude is huge in helping us manifest and raise our frequency so that we can manifest those things that we want, which is always more joy, more love, more abundance in any and every area of our life. So if you're seeing me for the first time, I am an author. I'm a photographer. As you can see behind me, those are my photos on the wall. I have been doing photography for many years. I have a book titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And you can see the book cover up above my head. That's my book cover right there. And in my book, I talk all about manifesting. I have people create manifesting postcards. They send me the postcard. I photograph it. And when their manifestation shows up in their reality, I share their stories. I have a bunch of fun exercises in the book. So you can find information out about my book if you go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com. I've been doing videos. I've been trying to do them daily. I took a week off for Thanksgiving, but I would love it if you would, if you're not on my YouTube channel, which is Postcards to the Universe, if you would go over to my YouTube channel and subscribe and watch the videos. I read oracle cards that I made from my photographs. I've also been doing tarot readings. I try to do one a day. And I usually do a 5 to 7 minute talking video. You'll see my face. And I like to talk about anything that's inspirational to just add more joy, more abundance, more light into this crazy world of ours. And that's why I love having the show, because I get to talk to people who are doing amazing kind of work, like my guest, who I'm going to be bringing on right now, Segal. She is a pioneering intuitive healer and the best-selling author of The Secret Language of Your Body. And she has dedicated over 2 decades to helping individuals unlock the secrets of their body's wisdom, facilitating profound healing on physical, emotional, and energetic levels. Her transformative teachings and intuitive insights empowers people to reconnect with their inner guidance. And I'm going to let Ina tell us all about her, but you can also find out more about her if you go to her website, which is going to be posted in the description. But for those of you on the radio, it's www.Segal.com. Welcome, Ina. Thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Melissa. It's great to be here.
Love your accent. You're in Brisbane? She's in Brisbane. She's meeting us all the way from down under.
I am.
Thank you. So so usually, now this is me making an assumption, but I want to hear your story. Usually this work of people that I've when we start doing this more spiritual, inspirational work and this healing work is because we've had something that has happened in our life, right? Which was the catalyst to start looking for the bigger answers to why certain things have happened. So I'll let you share your story. Share your story with us.
Thanks, Melissa. Exactly as you've said, and I know lots of people will say that because, usually it's pain that pushes us to explore, it's discomfort or struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I had back pain, digestive issues, anxiety, and psoriasis on my skin. And I was going to a lot of medical professionals for many years of those experiences. And then eventually I started going to alternative practitioners and I would get better, but it just wouldn't stick.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually I had an experience with a chiropractor where I was in agony and I went to see him, and he'd known me for a while, and he basically said, well, there's nothing I can do for you. Your body's stuck. Go home. And so I was enraged that he could say that even at the time, because I couldn't see the wisdom of it. But on the way home, I made a decision that I was going to heal myself. And so when I got home, I felt by that stage the anger subsided and I felt aligned. I felt like everything inside of me, my thinking, my feeling, my will were connected and working together. And so I started by breathing into my pain and reflecting on essentially on just what was going on and counting backwards from 30 to calm my mind down because it kept being negative. And then I'd asked if there is something higher or divine out there, can you help me now? And I felt this warmth move through my body and I could see this golden light. And then for whatever reason, it occurred to me to ask if I could see into my body, and without any expectations, within a few moments, I could see my spine, like as if I had this X-ray vision.
Wow.
And from there, I started asking, why do I have these issues? And I started getting very visual images because I realized I was a visual person at that time. And the images were of being bullied at school, of my parents not getting along and me not feeling comfortable at home. They were connected to my grandparents and ancestry and the trauma they went through, my own losses and things that I was finding hard to deal with. And so it was kind of like a tapestry of visual images with wisdom to help me understand what was really going on. And then I fell asleep, and the next day when I woke up, about 70% of the pain was gone. And I realized that something inside of me had changed. So for the next several weeks, I just kept connecting and journaling and essentially putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And at that stage, I had no more psoriasis and it never came back. And my back pain was completely gone. My anxiety went right down, and the digestive system improved, I'm going to say, because that's been a journey.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. That's my journey right now, my digestive system. And I'm seeing a functional doctor, and I have to, give her a sample of my stool, which is so fun. So, but we're talking about healing and our bodies, so that's just natural, right? Yeah, but do you think that you making this decision such in an affirmative way when you were leaving that doctor who said, well, just go home and deal with it kind of thing. And you said, oh no, I'm going to heal myself, kind of opened that doorway for you, because that's pretty incredible to ask to see and ask for the guidance. And then you get to see inside your body, like a medical intuitive, to see your spine. Do you think that was because you were so sure about it, like you were ready?
Yeah, I really think that there were several things. I always say that whilst I didn't have an experience where I could hold the transformation when I was going to see other people, because
Mm-hmm.
in my mind I was so focused on they know everything and they can fix me. And this was
Right.
a complete change and shift into, what if I could help myself? What would that look like? And I think that awakened something latent inside of me. And I actually think that most people who are open-minded and have some kind of willingness, let's say, to be more sensitized, because so many of us are desensitized,
Mm-hmm.
and are willing to ask questions and explore, how, have the capacity to have maybe not the same experience straight away, but over
Right.
time things unlock.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely am a big believer in that. And I was originally tapped into how the emotions and the traumas that we've had that store in our body and can manifest as a dis-ease later on, from Louise Hay. You can heal your life. And she was the first person that I ever read that was really talking about that kind of work. And it made so much sense to me, being, that we're all, mind, body, spirit, it's also connected, that we hold these things in our body. So for people who are listening, I mean, most of the people listening to this show who are my audience already are open-minded to this kind of work. But for those who are trying to understand, like, what are you talking about? Like, if I'm going through, shoulder pain or back pain or digestion issues, what does that have to do with, like you use as an example, growing up in a house with fighting parents or being bullied at school? Now I'm 45. Why am I in this kind of pain? Can you kind of describe that to us? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that people need to have a deeper understanding of how the body works. And I feel like I agree with you. Louise Hay was one of the first people who opened the door to this type of
Mm-hmm.
understanding, but she didn't have the capacity or the ability to see into the body. So
Mm-hmm.
from my research, the work actually didn't come from her. She published it and she
Yeah.
found it. But for me, it was a little bit different, where I could see into people's bodies and I started to connect the pieces and see that there was wisdom in each part. And when we start to break down what each part of the body does, it makes a lot of logical sense. So if we use your examples, for instance, if we're looking at the shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
in the past, we used to carry things on our shoulders physically, right?
Right.
And that is still the case, but now it's more mentally, emotionally, energetically. So we carry often heaviness, and we carry our family problems from our family
Mm-hmm.
on our shoulders, and we know that because we even we say that, we talk about that.
Right.
When with our throat, we know that the throat is about communication.
Yep.
So when people start having thyroid issues, when they start having issues, to do with their throat, as they get, well, it can happen any time, but
Anytime,
thyroid
but
issues, are more likely to happen as you get older. It's almost like, well, what are you suppressing and not saying? And so we come back to years and years of pushing things down and not acknowledging them creates a particular way of behaving and a particular way of thinking and seeing the world. So when we actually start to transform and change we start to go, oh, well, the reason that what happened to me in childhood or in the past comes up and affects me is
Mm-hmm.
because there is a perspective that then got built, into more perspectives and more limitations and more stresses and fears, and then creates more of those types of experiences where you feel helpless or hopeless or
Mm-hmm.
afraid. And the idea is to figure out where something has started and where it is now. And often where it started and where it is now is not the same. And so
Right.
again, if we look at all the different parts, like the digestive system is all about digesting your experiences and assimilating what
Mm-hmm.
happens on a daily basis. And
Yep.
that's the reason that we say, well, actually, this takes time, because how good are you at dealing with whatever has happened today within 24 hours? So if you had an argument or a fight with someone, do you just push it away or do you
Mm-hmm.
deal with this? And the digestive system in particular is connected to not just our own issues, but what did the people in our family not actually deal with?
Mm-hmm.
What were the secrets? What did they hide? What did they feel they couldn't talk about?
That makes so much sense. It makes so much sense because I know where a lot of my digestive issues come from. I had a good childhood, like my parents loving together, but I had a special needs sister who was only 2.5 years younger than me that was born with a lot of physical problems. And then she had developmental issues as she grew up. So my parents were very young when they had us. So I was very sort of on my own, and not wanting to put too much stress on my parents when they already were dealing with a child who was very sick. So pushing down and pushing down and pushing down and feeling the stressors from both my mother and my father and what they had to deal with my sister Tony. So I believe that finally, with all the other healing work I've done, that it's able to come up to finally be let go of and healed. And that's what I am currently working on, right? Like bringing all of that stuff up, because you're talking things when I was 2 or 3 that I don't even have conscious memories of anymore, but they're stored somewhere in the cells of my body. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And I think that people can say, well, I don't remember, but the body does remember.
Mhm.
And it's, eventually you start to have experiences later, in life as your body
Mhm.
weakens, anything and everything that's been suppressed that's coming to
Right.
the surface.
Right. So you are similar to, I don't think she does it anymore, Carolyn Mace, who was a medical intuitive. So you actually sit with, do you see one-on-one clients? Do you see people one-on-one
Um,
and or no?
Very rarely, almost never now, just because I teach so much and that takes so
Okay.
much of my time.
Yeah. But you can see a person and you can connect with their energy and go through their body and tell them, I see something here, I see something there, and then associate it maybe with a unresolved emotion or an unresolved trauma that they may have, even if it's an ancestral trauma, correct?
Absolutely. And it's actually quite interesting that lately I've been doing something that I haven't done for so many years, which is sessions with people. And we call them VIP sessions, where people can ask questions. And at different times, I'll tune into somebody. And lots of times people come with something that has been there for 10, 20, 30 years. And I sit there and I try and connect, ask questions based on seeing things in the person, but also the understanding that I have of the body and where things are stored and the timelines. And so I'll ask questions within this 10 minutes that I have with a person. And it's
Hmm.
incredible how many insights and awarenesses they will get as we're exploring that.
Yeah, because that's basically right now what you're teaching us to do is to, and that's what your book, you want to hold up show a copy of your book while we're talking. Yeah. The secret language of the body. You're teaching us how to awaken our own inner healer and tap into our own body's wisdom. Right. And that's part of the reason that you wanted to do the book.
Absolutely. The idea is that everyone has the capacity to do something towards their health. Some people have an internal, let's call it flexibility, and an ability to move through different stages of healing from the perspective of, I understand that whatever's showing up inside of me is guidance, right? It's kind of like when you do tarot cards. This is my guidance system. And so I'm going to work with it. And the more you work with it, the more capacity you have to heal. But the more you see yourself as the victim of, that your body is, your enemy, that it's there to be in conflict with you and just make you suffer, the harder it is. The more stuck you're going to get, the more frustrated, because you're not seeing the bigger picture and the journey.
Right. And I imagine people who have chronic illnesses for, say, 20, 30 some odd years, there may be even something deeper where having that chronic illness has served them in some way because they get the attention and the care that they need, that they don't know any other way of getting it. Would you say that's a true statement?
Yeah, absolutely. There's often a subconscious desire for them to be seen in some way where they're the victim of the situation. And I remember one time I was tuning into this lady who came to see me when I was doing a lot of private sessions, and I just kept seeing this image of a trophy. And I couldn't figure out why I was seeing the trophy until I realized that she would tell everyone that she went to see that she was unhealable. And it was like her trophy.
It was her trophy. Yeah. Wow. That is just, the mind is unbelievable. So connecting all the dots, I imagine, takes a lot of going within and quieting your mind and asking questions and seeing what comes through, because with the way life is so chaotic and so many things coming at us. It's what do you recommend if somebody says, Ina, I'm really sick and I don't know where it started. How should I start? What should I do?
Well, I actually invite people, when they don't know, I think you need a little bit more guidance. So I actually invite people to, at the moment, I have these masterclasses where in the past I would charge quite a bit of money for it, but at the moment they're free on my website, which you mentioned is innate.com. And during these masterclasses, I guide people through firstly understanding all the different, let's say, parts of their body, or if they're a bit deeper on the path, we start to look at chakras and archetypes, and I give them exercises, and it starts with, how do I awaken my body? So in a masterclass connected to my book, Understanding the Secret Language of Your Body, so there we'll go through, how do you wake the body up? How do you connect with it? How do you start to see the links? And I really encourage people to, rather than sitting there and being frustrated, you can definitely grab my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, but then go and actually do the masterclass where you can close your eyes, you can stand, you can be guided through all the exercises. And then if you want to go further, then we have different pathways as well where, I guide you through things
Sure.
live and you can connect all the pieces. But I do say to people, if you're early on the journey, you really do need someone who understands and who can guide you rather
Yeah.
than what I did, which
Right.
it took, it took a
That
lot of
makes
years,
sense.
yeah.
Well, before we continue, I just looked at the time. Let's take our break here. We'll do our commercial break, and then I have so many more questions for you. Very interesting. All right, everybody, stay tuned, and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes with Ina. Stay tuned.
Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting.
Do you have a dream that feels just out of reach? What if you could send a message to the universe and watch it come true? Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio, creator of the Postcards to the Universe project. For years, people from all over the world have sent me their dreams on a simple postcard, and I've seen incredible things happen. Postcards to the Universe, harness the universe's power and manifest your dreams, gives you the tools to create a life you love. Learn how to turn your biggest desires into a clear, powerful message the universe can hear. It's time to stop waiting and start creating. Discover your power to bring your dreams to life. This isn't just a book, it's an experience. Discover your purpose, unlock your potential, and manifest your wildest dreams. Find Postcards to the Universe by me, Melissa Caprio, wherever books are sold. Get your copy today. Start writing your story, one postcard at a time.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. So if you're just joining me, I have Ina Segal with me today. She's an intuitive healer and the author of The Secret Language of Your Body. And we're talking about intuitive healing. And Ina, you're also a medical intuitive, which not many people have that gift. That is pretty incredible. And I love the fact that you mentioned the word archetypes, because when I was listening to Carolyn Mace a lot, I was listening to her books about the archetypes and how that shows up in our bodies as, issues that when we're living out that archetype, whatever it is, there's certain chronic issues that present itself. It's so interesting to me. How long have you been doing this work now, would you say?
I've been doing this for 25 years.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. You've been doing it for a while. So because of all the years that you have behind you, do you see certain chronic conditions associated with certain experiences, emotions, or traumas that are kind of like a pattern? Do you know, if people who get a lot of headaches, maybe they're worriers or they have a lot of anxiety? I'm just throwing that out. I don't know, so I'm just curious.
Well, definitely. I definitely see those patterns. And I guess that's what I wrote about in my book, The Secret Language of Your Body. But I feel like the patterns we can identify as being very similar to other people, but the journey and what really
Sure.
happens to each person is very specific, which is also why I think whilst we can use something like The Secret Language of Your Body as the guide, we still need to learn how to come back to ourselves and tune into our own bodies.
Right. Well, is there certain illnesses or diseases that you have found in people who have suffered similar kind of traumas or experiences growing up that kind of keep showing up, like chronic back pain or digestive issues or cancers or what would you say, or heart disease? What would you say about that?
Yeah, it definitely. I think that when we're looking at, let's say, heart disease, right, which is prevalent at the moment, and we're looking at relationships, because the heart is all to do with relationships.
Sure.
And very often, the relationships that we have later on in our lives are completely connected to what we observed and saw with our parents and felt very comfortable with.
Right.
So it's kind of, it becomes a foundation, and then we are attracted, I'm going to say, and attract people into our lives where they represent a mother figure or a father figure. And because the heart is all about relationships and intimacy, kind of intimacy, you start to play out what your childhood was.
Right.
And so does the other person. And
Yeah.
unless you become really, really conscious of it, and I know lots of people say that relationships should be easy and then, they don't need to take work. And I have the complete opposite perspective. I believe that based on the fact that most of us have baggage and most of us have grown up in environments where, if we're looking at archetypes, for instance, of the child, the child archetype is connected to stages of development. And that those stages are both in the womb as well as up until when you're 21,
Right.
where your sense of self actually starts to come in, which is why alcohol's allowed at that age, because on some level we know these things. Not to say that I'm a proponent of anything to do with alcohol, but
Right. But it makes sense. I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Would that be
because
associated with the root chakra and issues going on in that area of your life, or if you're dealing with that kind of stuff, do you build on that? Because I heard you mention that you look at the chakras also.
Yeah, so the root chakra is very connected to the heart chakra. They kind of reflect each other.
Okay.
And the root chakra is connected to the first 7 years of your life and what
Right.
happened, and whether it was traumatic, whether it was positive, whether it was both. And so when there are stages of development that we're not, let's just say, embraced or worked with in a healthy way, then the person has to in some way compensate.
Yeah.
Right. And they may not know that they're compensating, but there's a part of them now that is stagnant and stuck. So, for instance, I always say to people, don't say that all of you is stuck, because not all parts of you are stuck. There's different aspects, and you actually have so much more power to deal with things when you realize not all of me is, stuck or sick. Right. And so when we look at the heart again, we're looking at, well, what did I learn in childhood or not learn that I need in order to be healthy? Or what do I need to let go of that is blocking me or causing challenges in my relationships?
Right.
And thus you start to connect and transform things, and rather than hiding or being fearful of rejection, because most of us have experienced rejection before we're
Oh,
21,
sure. Right.
You start to work with it, and then eventually you start to understand, well, actually the heart is all about trying things, failing at times, and gathering wisdom. And so we have different parts of the heart. This heart challenges, and I actually created a card deck around this,
Oh, I
around
love
healing
that.
different parts of your heart, because there's the part of the heart that is adventurous, and the question is, was it allowed to be adventurous? There's a part of the heart that has a purpose that it wants to achieve, and were we allowed to achieve that purpose, where we're encouraged, where we're supported, or did we allow fear to take control of our lives?
Wow.
What were our relationships like? What does love mean to us? What is wisdom? So there's all these layers that we explore. That's why when people say, I thought that I've dealt with it, how many times have we all heard that or said that? I
Yes.
thought I dealt with this. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe you've touched on it, and maybe you've dealt with a part of it. But what people don't understand is, and I've heard you talk about astrology before, is that we have these 7-year cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And in each cycle, we're actually, after the age of 21, we're revisiting things,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm. That's so funny you said that, because I was listening to somebody this morning or last night, I can't remember which, about Saturn it comes back every 7 years. And when the Saturn it's holding us accountable, like what needs to be addressed, right? And it was 7 years. And the way that you just said that made me think of that. That's so crazy. Mm-hmm.
all right, because at one point, let's say you're 28 and you're looking at something when you were younger, and at
Mm-hmm.
28 you have certain capacity to connect and understand and work through challenges, maybe when you were 8 or 10 or
Right.
12. But when you're 42, let's say, and that comes up again, you have much more wisdom. You have
Yes.
much more, I guess, a deeper perspective. And so now you're presented with another layer of
Right.
it, as opposed to only what happened, that is obvious and on the
Yeah.
surface. And so that's why we go through this, like literally recycling, right?
Right.
Cycling through what has not been looked at.
Right. Because anything that needs to be healed needs to come up into the light to be seen and looked at so that we can heal it, right? You can't heal what you're not acknowledging or looking at. It's in the dark, it's in the shadows. You can't heal it there. It has to come into the light for it to be healed. And that is not always easy. It could be very painful, but I imagine it's very rewarding when you're no longer suffering in pain or dealing with this chronic illness that you've been dealing with for so long. And I know that you talk about why sometimes a chronic pain or illness will often start in one area but then show up elsewhere in the body. What can you talk to us a little bit about why that happens?
Well, that happens because the body is incredibly resilient.
Okay.
And usually when the illness or a challenge in your body starts, it starts as a very little knock on the door. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, oh, I have to really listen to it to hear it.
Yeah.
I have to pay attention to something. So let's say something can start in your finger or in your toe, and you
Mm-hmm.
go, well, something feels a little bit off, a little bit weird, but it's not big enough for me to
Right.
really pay attention. And I've got so many things to do in my life that
Of course.
I'm not going to pay attention because,
Right.
this is just, it's a little thing. It's a small thing. And then eventually, as we keep ignoring it, this challenge builds
Yes.
and it becomes bigger and bigger. And then it starts moving through the body, and it moves into parts of the body that can, give you a bigger knock on the door, so to speak, where you can
Right.
notice them a lot more. So I say, for instance, with my own experience and my own story, I really feel that the issue started with my throat. It started with communication. And it was because I couldn't communicate that I started getting psoriasis. And because I felt like I couldn't defend myself, I couldn't speak the language, I was bullied.
Interesting.
And so my throat shut down, but I didn't actually get problems in my throat. I got them in my skin because on the deeper level, they were representing that I really wasn't comfortable in my own skin. And it was also connecting into ancestry because I have different people in my family who have it. And a lot of, from just asking them questions and finding out, a lot of it happened from loss or fear. So, so there's different layers that are connected. And if I look at my digestive system, well, actually, it occurred from my grandparents who went through the war and went through, horrendous traumas, not being able to talk about what happened to them for about 50 years because they had so
Right.
much fear that
course.
somehow, they would be hurt again from this. And so we start to connect the pieces, and we start to see how we pick up things from our family and absorb it and make it our own, but also where things really start is very often not where they are. And I remember when I was talking about the VIP sessions that I do, I had a lady and she had pain in her wrist. And I said to her immediately as I was tuning into the body, it's not your wrist, that's the issue, it's your neck. And we were talking with her about the right side of her neck and how it was connected to a man in her life that she did not have a good relationship with. So it started from there, and it moved into her wrist where she kind of felt, I can't give anymore. Right. And she couldn't really feel her neck. But she said to me, that's so interesting that I went to a physiotherapist and, and they told me the same thing, that they were feeling it was in the neck. So it's quite fascinating, how
That is
we
fascinating.
carry things.
Yes, how we carry things and where that shows up. Wow. So this person, the woman that you're speaking of, was she still in that relationship, or was this a past relationship that was showing up? And the reason I'm asking is because I want to know, I imagine it doesn't really matter because energetically, if it's there, it's there. Because giving is, why it shows up in her wrist. You're giving with your hands, right? You're always giving with your hands. So it's showing up here. I get that. But I'm just curious if it was for this person, like, okay, well, this is telling me maybe I shouldn't be in this relationship, and that was part of her journey, or if this was old stuff coming up.
Well, for her, it was old stuff that was coming up. So,
it was a past
and that's even harder at times to work with, because people think, but I've dealt with this. Like I was saying, that person's no longer in my life. And I find that in particular around the neck area, things show up on the left or the right side based on relationships that either you might have at present, but you don't want to deal with, and they're difficult and painful, or relationships that come from the past that you've just gone, this is too painful, too hard, I'm done with this, thinking that they can cut themselves off from people and not realizing just because you've said I'm not going to see this person doesn't mean it doesn't affect you and then it's still not there.
That's so interesting. I have a couple of friends that so if you guys are watching, who have some neck issues going on. So that's very, very interesting. And I know a little bit about, one I know very well, but the others I know a little bit about their past relationships. So I find that very interesting. Yeah. Wow. It's just so fascinating how you can make these connections. So for anybody listening, what would be the first, what's the question I want to ask? Like, when should we start asking what is the deeper meaning of this, whatever this is for them, whether it's shoulder, head, stomach, feet, toes, fingers, like, we should always be asking those questions when we're feeling our bodies like tingling and telling us something isn't right.
I mean, ideally, we befriend our bodies and we start to work with them by scanning them as one of the first things we do in the morning, and just being aware of, every day we feel different. And if we feel really good, we acknowledge and celebrate that.
Yeah.
And we actually go, how do I enhance feeling good? And if we're not feeling very well, then it's an opportunity to really slow down and to start asking those questions. And a great way to do that is by placing your hands on different parts of your body and starting to explore, what are the thought patterns that I have here? What are the feelings that feed these thought patterns? Are they healthy? Do they come just from me, or are there other people in my family that I've seen this in and I'm, or I've been impacted by? Is this coming from the present, or is it more likely to be from the past? And, we can journal this, we can move through this as a meditation. We can place our hands on the body and ask those questions as we take slow, deep breaths in. There's so many ways of doing it.
Yeah. Now, can we be carrying the ancestral trauma from ancestors that we've never actually met or been around in this physical life? Does that get passed down?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I discovered, and it's positive and negative, was just say, if we weren't judges.
Right.
I realized, for instance, from one of my great grandmothers who I'd never met, I was able to receive this gift of tuning in. She was an incredible clairvoyant, from what I'd learned. And then I'd heard my mum say so many times about other people in the family that they were behaving exactly like my other great grandmother, who was also their great grandmother. And again, these people never met that person, but their way of communicating was the same. And then I noticed, for instance, with my ex-husband, he had not known his father. He literally only saw his father a couple of times when he was a child, but everybody in the family who knew his father said that he was a copy of his father and behaved in exactly the same way. So I really feel like when we go deeper, we start to understand that we have these subtle bodies, and these subtle bodies carry that information that, then, through the chakras, through the something called the etheric body, that essentially makes us behave in certain ways through the archetypes. The archetypes get passed on as well.
Yeah. Yes, they do. So thinking in that same train of thought, let's say diabetes runs in your family, or heart disease runs in your family, or cancer, right? It comes through the DNA. How do we change that story so we don't take that on, right? Because you get those, you go to the doctors, they ask you, well, does cancer run in your family? Does heart disease run in your family? Right? So we're already being told on some level, well, you're likely to get it more because it runs in your family. So we're taking on that energy, right? So how do we shift that and not take that on?
I think it's really, and again, I've written so much about this and have done so many workshops on this topic, but essentially step one is to actually trace it back to what are the beliefs, the thought patterns, the behaviors in particular that these people in your family do that you do. So, and again, if if you have my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, then you can look at, let's say, a cancer, and you would go, oh, I relate to doing this, or behaving in this way. Who in my family does that?
Who does that?
A person, if somebody had a cancer in some part of their body, is this what they do? And so you start to link it, and from there you start to become very conscious of the things you need to change, because obviously if you do the same things that they did, you're going to likely get the same condition. But if you become very conscious of it and make the changes earlier before it becomes physical, then things are so much more likely to change.
That makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. It's almost like that's a different way of doing like a lineage and a family tree, right? Like, let's do the archetypes. Let's do and start going down. That's so fascinating. Now, do you have any thoughts on people who are born disabled and why they would come in with a body that is limited and how it can function? Like, do you see anything in that?
I think there's usually two different aspects of that. And one is from previous lifetimes. We have to look at previous lifetimes.
Sure.
And then we also have to look at what actually occurred in the womb and how were they affected and what they absorbed, because the womb is a very important time and very fragile. So I really think that women in particular need to learn about how to take care of themselves when they're pregnant, not just from the perspective, but from the emotional, energetic perspective.
And some women don't even know they're pregnant for the first 8 weeks, right? They're not even aware, which is another thing. Yeah. So that's so fascinating. So Ina, tell people how that they can get in touch with you and and show us your book again, and where to get your book.
The Secret Language of Your Body. And the best way is to go to my website, which is inasegal.com, INNASEGAL.com, and explore the website, but definitely do the masterclass, which is like a mini workshop. It goes for 3 to 4 hours. So it's really about you learning about yourself, but also doing the processes. That's one of the most important things, because in the future it's not going to be for free. So
what a gift. Do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for sure. What a gift. Thank you so much, Ina, for being my guest today. It was such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Check her out, guys. Do it. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace. Bye, everybody. See you next time.